There's a place in the heart of Middle-earth where even the bravest whisper in fear, a place where the shadows themselves seem to breathe. Deep beneath the misty mountains, the ruins of Moria stand silent, a labyrinth of forgotten halls and echoing chasms, home to secrets older than the dwarves who once carved its stone. And tonight, we step into those shadows, where legends speak of nameless things, creatures so ancient, so strange, they defy even the tongues of elves and sages. Where are you listening from right now? Is it late where you are? The world outside your window hushed and still? Let us know in the comments below, because this isn't just a story. It's a journey we're taking together into the darkest corners of Middle-earth's most terrifying mystery. Picture a lone traveler, his lantern trembling in the cold air as he stands before the great stone archway of Moria. Eldrin, a scholar of lost histories, has spent years chasing fragments of tales about what lurks beneath these mountains. The dwarves called it Khazad-dûm, the glittering realm of mithril and marvels. But now, it's a tomb. The wind moans through the cracks in the stone, carrying something else with it, a sound like claws dragging against rock, far below. Eldrin knows the stories of things that slither in the deep, things with no names, things that even the Balrog feared. But tonight, he's not here for stories. He's here for the truth. The weight of that decision presses on him like the mountain itself. Every step forward is a step into the unknown, where the air grows thicker, the darkness deeper. His lantern flickers, casting jagged shadows that twist and dart just beyond the edge of sight. Is it the wind or something moving in the blackness? Moria doesn't give up its secrets easily. It guards them with silence, with whispers, with the creeping dread that settles in your bones. And yet, Eldrin presses on. Because some mysteries demand answers, even if the cost is more than one scholar can bear. So take a slow breath, settle in, and let's follow him together into the heart of the horror that waits beneath the world. The echoes of Eldrin's footsteps vanish into the yawning blackness, as if Moria itself is swallowing sound whole. Each step takes him deeper, the air thickening with a cold so sharp it stings his lungs. His lantern, once a beacon of defiance, now flickers like a dying ember, its light shrinking as though the darkness is pressing in, hungry. The walls around him are no longer smooth dwarven stone, but rough, pitted with marks that make his pulse quicken. These aren't the neat runes of Khazad-dûm's builders, nor the crude scratches of orcs. These are jagged, twisting symbols, carved by something that didn't think like mortal hands. They seem to pulse in the dim light, as if whispering secrets in a language older than the mountains themselves. A sound cuts through the silence, not the groan of shifting stone or the drip of distant water, but something alive. A whisper, low and wet, slithering from the shadows just beyond his lantern's reach. It doesn't speak in words, but in sensation, a primal urge to flee, coiled like a serpent in his gut. Eldrin freezes, his breath shallow, the voice, if it can be called, that doesn't come again. But the silence is worse, because now he knows he isn't just walking through ruins. He's being watched. Somewhere in the abyss, something stirs, not with the heavy tread of a Balrog or the skittering of goblins, but with a slow, deliberate movement, like a creature uncoiling from centuries of sleep. The air carries a scent now, musky and thick, like wet stone and things long buried. Eldrin's hand trembles as he reaches for the knife at his belt. He came seeking answers, but the deeper he goes, the clearer the truth becomes. Some knowledge isn't meant to be found. The nameless things of Moria don't want to be known. They simply are, and they've been waiting. Ignoring the creeping dread tightening around his chest, Eldren steps into the chamber, his boots crunching over shattered stone. The statues stand like silent sentinels, their features chiseled away with such violence that even the empty sockets, where eyes once gazed, seem to scream. Whoever did this didn't just want to destroy, they wanted to erase. The air here is different, heavier, as if the very dust remembers the act. And then he sees it, a leather-bound journal, half buried beneath rubble, its pages splayed open like a gutted creature. The handwriting is frantic, ink blotted with what might be old tears or rain, or something else. The words leap from the brittle pages, each sentence a fraying thread leading deeper into madness. They move in the walls, the explorer had written. Not rats, not beasts. Things with too many limbs, too many eyes. Things that taste the air and know when you're afraid. They watch. They always watch. Eldrin's throat goes dry as he turns another page, only to find the next entry scratched over and over in a spiraling frenzy. They do not like to be seen. A gust of wind howls through the chamber, unnatural, impossible this deep underground, and his lantern gutters out. Darkness swallows him whole. For a heartbeat, there's only the sound of his own ragged breath. Then the whispers begin, not the shapeless hissing from before, but voices now, layered and wet, slithering from every direction. They don't speak any tongue he knows, yet the meaning coils into his mind like poison. Turn back. Turn back, turn back. The journal slips from his fingers as the chamber seems to breathe around him, the very stones shifting in the blackness. He came seeking answers. But the thing that answers him now isn't meant to be heard by mortal ears. Stumbling blindly, Eldrin's hand brushes against something wet and cold, a slime-covered wall that pulses faintly, as if alive. His fingers jerk back instinctively, but it's too late. The sensation lingers, sticky and wrong, like touching the inside of a living thing. Panic claws up his throat as the walls themselves seem to breathe, the stone rippling in slow, undulating waves. The passage ahead narrows, the ceiling sagging lower with a sound like grinding bones. Moria isn't just haunted, it's hungry. His trembling hands fumble for the lantern, striking flint again and again until a feeble spark catches. The flame sputters to life, casting a sickly glow that dances across the walls, revealing what he'd hoped was only a trick of the dark. Grotesque shapes writhe just beyond the light's edge, their forms blurring between flesh and shadow, too many limbs folding and unfolding like broken puppets. They don't advance, they don't retreat, they simply watch, their presence a wordless dare. Every instinct screams at him to run, to abandon this madness before the mountain swallows him whole. But the journal's warnings echo louder. They do not like to be seen. If he turns back now, the things in the dark will follow. They'll hunt him through the tunnels, relentless, until his torch dies and his voice gives out. But to go forward, that path vanishes into blackness, where the air itself feels thick with something ancient and waiting. A sound slices through the silence, a wet, clicking noise like a tongue testing teeth. The lantern's flame gutters, and in that heartbeat of darkness, something moves, not toward him, not away, around him, as if the very air is rearranging itself. Eldrin's breath comes in ragged gasps, his mind racing. There's no right choice here, only survival. And so, with a prayer to gods he isn't sure still listen, he does the unthinkable. He steps forward straight into the waiting dark. The moment his foot touches the unseen ground, the whispers return. This time, they don't beg him to leave. They laugh. The moment Eldrin's boots hit solid ground, the bridge behind him shatters with a sound like the earth itself splitting apart. Stone crashes into the abyss, swallowed by the blackness without so much as an echo. He doesn't dare look back. The air here is different, thicker, older, humming with a tension that prickles his skin. His lantern, miraculously still alive, casts a trembling circle of light, revealing walls covered in carvings so ancient, the rock seems to bleed around their edges. These aren't Dwarven designs, nor the work of any hands he recognizes. They twist and coil like living things, depicting shapes that make his eyes ache, figures with too many joints, mouths where mouths shouldn't be, eyes staring from places no eyes belong. A gust of rancid air rolls up from the chasm, carrying with it a sound that freezes his blood, a slow, wet drag, like something immense pulling itself closer. The whispers surge, not just around him now but inside his skull, threading through his thoughts like roots through soil. You should not be here, they hiss, not in words but in images, 1,000 skittering limbs, a maw opening in the dark, a hunger older than time. Eldrin's knees buckle, but he forces himself forward, because stopping means death. The tunnel ahead narrows, the ceiling pressing down until he's hunched like a beggar, the stone grazing his back with every breath. Then, without warning, the passage opens into a cavern, so vast his light can't touch its edges. The ground beneath him isn't stone but something softer, yielding slightly with each step, like walking on the skin of a sleeping beast. Strange growths cling to the walls pulsing, vein tendrils that glisten in the lantern's glow, their ends splitting open occasionally to release a puff of sour mist. And at the center of it all, a pedestal, not carved, not built, but grown, as if the rock itself had twisted upward to hold the thing resting atop it. A single, unblinking eye, lidless and huge, its pupil a void that drinks the light. It doesn't look at him, it sees him, not his body, not his face, but the fear coiled in his gut, the memories he's buried, the dreams he's forgotten. Eldrin's breath comes in shallow gasps as the eye's gaze pins him like a needle through a moth. The whispers fall silent, the cavern holds its breath. And then, with a sound like 1,000 pages turning at once, the lid of the pedestal peels back, revealing a staircase spiraling down into blackness. A choice: turn back and face the things hunting him, or descend and meet whatever waits below. The source of the whispers, the heart of the horror. The lantern flickers, its flame guttering as if in warning. But Eldrin has come too far for warnings. He takes the first step down. The air grows colder with every descent. The stairs beneath him slick with something that isn't water. The walls here are alive with movement, not from creatures but from the stone itself, rippling, breathing, as if the mountain is just a thin skin over something far older. The whispers return, but now they're not just voices. They're memories, his own, a childhood fear of the dark, the first time he held a dying man's hand. The weight of every secret he's ever kept. The thing below isn't just watching him, It's knowing him, and with each step, Eldrin realizes the terrible truth. Moria's nameless creatures aren't just hiding in the dark. They're the dark itself, and they've been waiting for him. The bones crunch under Eldrin's boots like brittle twigs, each step sending a shudder up his spine. The tunnel walls are no longer stone. They're woven from ribs and skulls, femurs stacked like bricks, finger bones fused into grotesque mosaics that seem to twitch in the lantern's flicker. Some are yellowed with age, others still glistening, as if the mountain itself is digesting its victims. The stench is unbearable, a thick rot that coats his tongue, making every breath taste of death. And then he hears it, not the shapeless whispers of before, but his own name, hissed from a dozen mouths at once. Eldrin, it slithers from the bones, from the darkness, from the very air. Eldrin, you are late. A shadow peels away from the wall, darker than the blackness around it, congealing into a hunched silhouette with two long arms and no face. Just a smooth, hollow void where features should be. It moves wrong, joints bending in impossible places, fingers stretching like melting wax. Eldrin's dagger is in his hand before he can think, the blade glinting weakly in the gloom. The creature pauses, tilting its headless form as if studying him. Then impossibly, it laughs, a sound like cracking ice, and reaches for him. He lashes out, the dagger slicing empty air as the figure dissolves into smoke, leaving behind a single, bloody handprint on the tunnel wall. Fresh, dripping, Eldrin's pulse hammers in his throat. This isn't a warning, it's an invitation. The handprint gleams, beckoning him toward a side passage he hadn't noticed before. A slit in the bone-strewn wall, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Beyond it, the darkness hums, a low, resonant vibration that makes his teeth ache. Every instinct screams to turn back, to flee while he still can, but the whispers coil around him, taunting. You wanted answers, they murmur, come and see. The handprint smears as he brushes past it, the blood warm against his sleeve. The narrow passage twists, the bones pressing closer, scraping his shoulders, snagging his clothes like skeletal fingers trying to hold him back. Then, abruptly, the tunnel opens into a chamber, so vast his light can't reach the ceiling. The ground here isn't littered with bones. It's made of them. A great mosaic stretches beneath his feet, a swirling, screaming portrait of faces frozen in agony, their mouths open in silent wails. At the center, a throne. Not of gold or stone, but of fused vertebrae, towering and grotesque, and seated upon it nothing. The throne is empty, yet the air thrums with presence, a weight so heavy Eldrin's knees nearly buckle. The whispers rise to a chorus, not just around him, but inside him, threading through his veins like poison. Sit, they urge, rest, you've come so far. The offer is sweet, seductive, a lullaby wrapped in razor blades. To sit would be to surrender, to let the mountain claim him as it has so many others. But the exhaustion is real, the terror a lead weight in his chest. His lantern gutters, the flame shrinking to a blue ember. In the dying light, the bone mosaic shifts, the faces turning toward him, their hollow eyes pleading. Join us, they seem to say. The dark is kinder than you think. Eldrin's grip tightens on the dagger. He came for truth, but some truths are not found, they are endured. And the thing in the dark knows it. The handprints gleam wet in the lantern's guttering light, each one a smeared promise of horror. Eldrin's breath comes in ragged bursts as he follows their trail, the air thickening with the scent of stagnant water and something older, something that tastes like rust and regret. The tunnel slopes downward, the walls pressing closer until he's forced to sidestep through cracks that scrape his shoulders, the stone warm and oddly yielding, as if the mountain is swallowing him whole. Then, without warning, the passage opens into a cavern, so vast his light can't touch its ceiling. Black water stretches before him, a lake of ink so still it might be glass. Not a ripple disturbs its surface, not a whisper of wind. The silence here is absolute, heavy, like the pause between heartbeats. On the shore, half buried in silt, lies a skeletal figure, its bony fingers curled around something that pulses with a sickly green glow. A crystal, not dwarven, not elven, something older, its facets carved with symbols that writhe under his gaze as if alive. Eldrin's hand hovers over it, his skin prickling with the wrongness of it. But curiosity has always been his curse. He reaches, he takes it. The moment his fingers close around the crystal, the lake exhales. A ripple fractures the stillness, spreading outward in perfect rings. Then another, and another, not from the center, but from the edges, as if something is circling him, just beneath the surface. The water bulges, then parts with a sound like tearing flesh. A hand breaches the surface, pale, elongated, its fingers too many and too long, knuckles bending in places no bone should bend. Then another, and another. Dozens of them, rising in unison, their grasping movements eerily synchronized, as if pulled by a single mind. The crystal flares in his grip, its light painting the cavern in ghastly hues. It's not a relic, it's a beacon, and he's just turned it on. The hands pause, hovering above the water, their fingertips twitching. Then as one, they turn, palms facing him, fingers splayed, and the lake screams. Not a sound, but a pressure, a force that slams into his skull like a hammer, peeling back his thoughts layer by layer. Images flood his mind, a city of spires, black and glistening, rising from the depths. Figures with hollow eyes chanting in a tongue that twists like smoke, a hunger vast and ancient, stirring in the dark. The hands begin to move toward him, sliding across the water's surface with unnatural grace, their owners still hidden beneath. The skeletal figure at his feet suddenly seems to grin, its jaw creaking open as if to laugh. Eldrin staggers back, the crystal burning his palm, its light now a frantic strobe. The things in the water don't hurry. They don't need to. They've been waiting for centuries. What's a few more moments to a hunger that never dies? The first hand closes around his ankle. The touch is freezing, a cold that seeps straight to the bone. The crystal's glow dims, as if drained by the contact. Eldrin's voice finally returns to him in a raw shout, not of fear, but of fury. He didn't come this far to be prey. With a wrenching twist, he kicks free, the hand dissolving into mist as soon as it loses contact. The others hesitate, just for a heartbeat, but it's enough. He turns and runs, the crystal clutched to his chest like a stolen secret. Behind him, the lake boils, the hands thrashing, the water itself seeming to rear up in pursuit. The cavern shudders, stalactites crashing down like teeth. He doesn't look back. He can't, because the worst part is in the hands. It's the whispers that follow him now, not from the walls, but from the crystal itself. A voice, soft and sweet, murmuring a single word over and over. Home. The water erupts behind him, a chorus of wet, tearing sounds as the creatures pull themselves onto land. Their bodies don't move like flesh and bone. They flow, limbs stretching and melting like wax, held too close to flame. The crystal's light pulses erratically in Eldrin's grip, its green glow casting jagged shadows that make the horrors even more monstrous. Their mouths stretch wide, not to scream, but to inhale, as if sucking the very air from the cavern. And then they are after him, their movements jerky yet impossibly fast, skittering across the stone like spiders made of smoke and dead skin. Eldrin's boots slip on the damp rock as he bolts for the tunnel, his lungs burning. The crystal sears his palm, its heat a warning and a weapon. The creatures recoil each time its light flares, but only for a moment. They're learning. Adapting, the shadows cling to them like a second skin, swallowing the light the closer they get. A cold hand brushes his shoulder, fingers like icicles sinking into his cloak. He whirls, slashing blindly with his dagger, and the thing shrieks, a sound like glass shattering underwater, before dissolving into mist. But more take its place, their hollow eyes fixed on the crystal, their hunger palpable. The tunnel mouth looms ahead, half collapsed, its ceiling sagging like a rotten tooth. Eldrin dives through just as the first creature reaches for him, its nails scraping his heel. He rolls, kicking loose rubble behind him, and the rocks groan in response. With a thunderous crack, the passage seals itself, tons of stone crashing down between him and the things outside. Dust fills the air, choking and thick, but he doesn't stop moving, crawling backward until his spine hits solid wall. Silence, then scratching, faint at first, then frantic, claws dragging against the other side of the rubble. They are not giving up. The crystal's glow sputters, dimming to a feeble ember, and in the dying light, Eldrin sees them, not as shadows now, but as they truly are. Faces stretched too wide, eyes like pits, skin translucent and pulsing with something black beneath. They press against the cracks in the rock, their mouths working soundlessly, their fingers worming through gaps too small for flesh. They don't breathe. They don't blink. They simply wait, their hunger a living thing. The crystal flickers one last time, its light guttering out with a hiss. Darkness swallows the tunnel thick, suffocating, alive. Eldrin's pulse hammers in his ears, but he doesn't dare move, because the scratching has stopped, and in the silence, he realizes the terrible truth. The creatures aren't trying to get in anymore. They're listening, and they know exactly where he is. Trapped in the suffocating darkness, Eldrin's fingers dig into the rough stone as the creature's whispers coil around him like serpents. His mind races somewhere in the fog of old Dwarven texts, half remembered from dusty scrolls. A verse surfaces, a child's rhyme, really, one the miners of Khazad Dûm used to hum while chiseling the deep places. Knock where no door stands, whisper to the unhearing stone, and the mountain may answer. A desperate gamble. Pressing his palm flat against the damp wall, he rasps the words, his voice cracking. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happens. Then, impossibly, the rock shudders. Not a quake, but something subtler, like muscle, flexing beneath skin. A seam appears, no wider than a hair at first, then yawning open with a groan of grinding stone. The scent of stale air rushes out, laced with iron and something faintly sweet, like long dead flowers. Behind him, the creatures howl, a sound that shakes loose pebbles from the ceiling. Their shadows surge forward, fingers grasping, but Eldrin doesn't hesitate. He throws himself into the gap, just as the wall slams shut behind him, sealing with a finality that vibrates through his bones. The passage is narrow, so tight his shoulders scrape both sides, the ceiling low enough to force him into a crouch. But it ascends, a steep, spiraling tunnel carved with deliberate precision, its walls too smooth to be natural. Dwarven work, surely, though the craftsmanship is unlike anything he's seen. The stone seems almost grown, its curves organic, as if the mountain itself shaped this escape. His lantern is gone, lost in the frenzy, but a faint phosphorescence clings to the walls here, a blue-green glow like foxfire, just enough to see by. Every few steps, the light pulses, as if breathing with him. The higher he climbs, the stranger the air becomes thinner, yes, but charged with a tension that prickles his skin. The whispers haven't stopped, but they've changed. No longer taunting, they murmur in a language that lives in the space between words, more rhythm than speech. It should terrify him. Instead, it settles over him like a veil, slowing his pulse, steadying his hands. The crystal in his grip, silent since the lake, begins to warm again, its light seeping through his fingers in emerald threads. They coil up his arm, not burning but binding, as if stitching him back together. A draft brushes his face, real, fresh air, carrying the faintest hint of pine. The passage ends abruptly at a circular door of blackened bronze. Its surface etched with runes so ancient, the metal has healed around them, leaving only ghostly impressions. There's no handle, no lock, only a single word at the center, worn nearly smooth. Yuan, nameless, Eldrin's breath catches. He knows this place, not from maps or legends, but from the dreams that have haunted him since childhood. Dreams of a door at the heart of the world, and the thing that waits behind it. The crystal flares in response, its light bleeding into the metal, and with a sigh like a last breath, the door swings open. Beyond lies neither tunnel nor chamber, but a yawning expanse of stars. Not above, but around, as if he's stepped into the hollow core of the mountain and found the night sky folded inside. The air hums with a sound too deep for hearing, a vibration that roots him to the spot, and floating at the center, wreathed in that impossible starlight, is a shape. Not a creature, not a god, something older. It has no face, no form, just a presence that presses against his mind, showing him without words, Moria was never empty. It was sleeping, and now, thanks to him, it's beginning to wake. The grand hall swallows Eldrin whole, its vaulted ceiling vanishing into a darkness so profound it feels less like absence and more like something watching. The air here is thick with the scent of old incense and wet stone, a cloying sweetness that sticks to the back of his throat. His footsteps echo unnaturally, as if the sound is being swallowed and regurgitated by the walls. And there, in the center of it all, the altar. Not carved from any stone, he recognizes it gleams dully, like the carapace of some enormous insect, its surface etched with runes that squirm under his gaze. The moment he steps closer, the crystal in his palm ignites, its emerald light licking up the altar's edges, revealing what was hidden in the gloom, a mural, vast and terrible, stretching across the far wall. Faceless figures cascade from a black sun, their limbs elongated, their bodies twisting like smoke as they descend upon a city of spiraling towers. The artistry is flawless, the pigments still vivid after untold ages, as if the paint itself refuses to fade. But it's the details that freeze Eldrin's blood. The figures aren't just faceless, they're erased, their features scraped away by some frantic hand, leaving only smooth, screaming voids. And the city below them, it isn't ruined, it's changed. The towers bend like melted wax, the streets writhe like intestines, the very architecture twisting into something alive and wrong. The whispers surge, no longer hissing but singing, a chorus of voices that vibrate in his ribs. Join us, they sigh, sweet as a lover's breath. The longing hits him like a wave, a pull so visceral, his knees nearly buckle. It would be so easy to let go, to step into the mural, to dissolve into that glorious, nameless dark. His fingers slacken around the crystal, just for a heartbeat, but the moment it begins to slip, the vision shatters. The mural flickers, the figures twitching as if startled awake. The altar's runes pulse crimson, their glow seeping into the cracks between the stones, spreading like veins. Eldrin staggers back as the whispers turn to snarls, the sweetness curdling into something rancid. The crystal flares hotter, its light now a scalding brand against his palm, and with it comes a new sound, a heartbeat. Not his own, something deeper, slower, thudding up through the soles of his boots. The mountain isn't just awake, it's alive and it's hungry. The altar cracks open with a sound like splintering bone. From the fissure, a hand emerges pale, perfect, its fingers tipped with nails like shards of obsidian. It gropes blindly for purchase before finding the edge, and then pulls. What rises is neither creature nor god, but something in between, a figure draped in tattered starlight, its face a shifting mosaic of every expression Eldrin has ever worn. Fear, wonder, desperation. It smiles with his own lips, and when it speaks, the voice is his, but warped, stretched thin over something vast and hollow. You kept us waiting, it says, tilting its head, but no matter, you're here now. The hand extends, palm up, an invitation. The crystal in Eldrin's grip screams, its light sputtering like a dying star. He knows, with a certainty colder than the deep places of the earth, that to touch that hand is to vanish, not to die, to unbecome, and yet, the whispers coil around him, softer now, almost tender. You've always wanted to know, haven't you? The thing murmurs, stepping closer. The truth beneath all the lies, it's simple. The world is older than they told you. Hungrier, and you, little scholar, are the key. The heartbeat quickens, the walls breathe, and Eldrin, for the first time in his life, has no words left. Only a choice. A deafening roar shakes the hall as the creatures break through the walls, their forms now more solid, more humanoid, but still devoid of faces. They advance, their movements jerky and unnatural. Eldrin raises the crystal, its light forcing them back, but it is flickering, nearly spent. He knows he cannot hold them off forever. A choice looms. Use the last of the crystal's power to escape, or try to banish the creatures, risking his own life. The crystal pulses weakly in his hand, its emerald glow guttering like a candle in a storm. Each flicker sends the creatures recoiling, their hollow faces twisting in silent fury, but they recover faster now, edging closer with every retreat. The air reeks of damp stone and something sharper, ozone, like the moment before lightning strikes. Eldrin's arm trembles from the effort of holding the crystal aloft, his muscles screaming, He can feel its power waning, the warmth leaching from it like blood from a wound. To his left, the shattered remnants of a dwarven archway gape like a mouth, leading deeper into the mountain's bowels. To his right, the altar, still oozing that eerie crimson light, the faceless thing waiting with its outstretched hand. Neither path offers safety, only different kinds of damnation. The creatures hiss, their voices weaving into a single word. Choose. The crystal's light dims once more, and this time, the creatures don't flinch. They step forward in unison, their elongated fingers curling into claws. Eldrin's breath comes in ragged gasps, his mind racing. He could run. He could turn and bolt for the archway, trust the mountain's labyrinth to swallow him whole before they catch him. But the crystal, its last spark could be a weapon. He's read enough forbidden texts to know how this ends. Power demands sacrifice. A memory surfaces, his mentor's voice, dry as parchment. The dark feeds on fear, but it starves for defiance. The creatures freeze, as if sensing the shift in him. Eldrin's grip tightens. He's spent his life chasing answers. Maybe some questions aren't meant to be answered. Maybe some doors aren't meant to be opened. With a roar of his own, he hurls the crystal at the altar. It strikes the faceless figure square in the chest, shattering on impact. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the world explodes in green fire. The blast knocks Eldrin off his feet, the heat searing his skin, even as the light washes over him like a tide. The creatures shriek, their forms unraveling into smoke, their voices wailing in a language that cracks the stone beneath him. The altar splits apart, the faceless figure howling as it's dragged back into the fissure, its starlight robes dissolving into the void. The mural behind it peels away like burning parchment, the figures melting into the walls, their erased faces finally at peace. Silence, then a groan, deep and seismic, as the mountain itself settles. The crimson light snuffs out, the whispers cease. Eldrin lies on his back, staring up at the vaulted ceiling, his body aching, his mind strangely clear. The crystal is gone, the creatures are gone, but the air is different now, lighter, as if a weight he hadn't noticed has been lifted. Slowly, painfully, he sits up. The hall is in ruins, the walls scorched, the altar reduced to rubble, and there, amid the wreckage, a single shaft of pale light cuts through the gloom. A crack in the ceiling, too precise to be natural. Daylight, the choice was never escape or banishment. It was fear or faith, and somehow, against all odds, he chose right. The creatures are gone, but the mountain remembers. And so does he. The moment Eldrin's feet hit open ground, the mountain behind him convulses with a sound like a dying beast. He doesn't look back, doesn't dare. The wind howls through the pass, carrying with it the scent of scorched stone and something darker, something that lingers in the back of his throat like the aftertaste of a nightmare. The sky above is a bruised purple, twilight bleeding into night, as if the world itself is holding its breath. His lungs burn, his legs scream, but he doesn't stop running until the ground levels out and the first stars prick through the gathering dark. Only then does he risk a glance over his shoulder. Where the entrance to Moria once stood, there's now only a wall of fallen rock, the stones fused together as if by some immense heat. No cracks, no gaps, just seamless ruin. The mountain hasn't just sealed itself. It's healed, the wound stitched shut, but the silence is worse. No birdsong, No rustle of leaves, just a hush so deep it presses against his eardrums. Even the wind has stilled, as if the valley itself is waiting for something. Eldrin's hands are empty. The crystal, the dagger, even his water flask, all lost in the chaos. All he has left are the clothes on his back and the weight of what he's seen. The faceless figures, the altar, the thing that wore his face. His fingers twitch, phantom aches where the crystal's heat once seared his palm. It's gone now, but the memory of its voice lingers, whispering just beneath the surface of his thoughts. You're the key. A cold droplet lands on his cheek. Then another, rain. It starts as a drizzle, then builds into a downpour, the water washing over him like a baptism. He tilts his face to the sky, letting it sluice away the dust, the blood, the terror. For the first time in days, weeks, he breathes, really breathes. The air is clean here, sharp with pine and wet earth, a world away from the suffocating dark of Moria. But as the rain soaks through his cloak, something else soaks in, too, the creeping realization that he didn't escape unscathed. His skin itches where the crystal's light touched him, tiny veins of emerald tracing beneath the surface like roots. When he presses a finger to them, they pulse faintly, as if something sleeps beneath his flesh. The mountain isn't done with him. Maybe it never will be. In the distance, a lone wolf howls, its cry echoing through the valley. Eldrin shivers, though not from the cold. Somewhere, deep in the bones of the earth, the nameless things are stirring. And they remember his name. Gasping for breath, Eldrin staggers to his knees as the first true rays of dawn spill over the jagged peaks of the misty mountains. The golden light should feel like absolution, like warmth after an endless night, but it only makes the shadows crouching in his mind stretch longer. Behind him, Moria's sealed entrance is a scar against the mountainside. The stones fuse together so perfectly, they might have been that way for millennia. No marks, no cracks, just silence, and yet the wind carries no birdsong here, no rustle of leaves, only the faintest hum, a vibration just below hearing, like the echo of a bell struck in a dream. Eldrin presses a hand to his chest, where the emerald veins still pulse beneath his skin, a living map of whatever the crystal left behind. The scholars in Rivendell might call it a curse. The dwarves a blessing, but standing here, tasting iron on his tongue, he knows it's neither. It's a reminder. The nameless things beneath Moria weren't just hiding. They were forgotten. Older than Khazad-dûm's first chisel marks, older than the elves' first songs, older than the very bones of the earth, and forgotten things have a way of resurfacing. A flicker of movement catches his eye, a raven perched on a nearby boulder, its head tilted unnaturally to one side, not watching him, studying him. Its beak opens, and what comes out isn't a caw but a whisper, a rasp of syllables too precise for any bird. They remember you. Then it takes flight, wings cutting the air like knives, leaving behind a single black feather that dissolves into smoke before it touches the ground. Eldrin's breath hitches. The sun climbs higher, painting the world in gold and green, but the light doesn't reach the hollow place inside him where the whispers still coil. He turns his face east, toward the distant haze of Lothlorien, where the elves might have answers, or more likely, more questions. Because the truth is this: some doors, once opened, can never fully close. And the thing that waits behind them, it's patient. It's hungry, and now, thanks to him, it knows the taste of the world above. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of rain from the south. A storm coming, or something worse. Eldrin squares his shoulders and takes the first step forward, not toward home, not toward safety, but into a story that's only just begun. The Hall of the Scholars is vast, its vaulted ceiling painted with fading constellations that no longer match the night sky. Eldrin stands at its center, the fragments of the crystal laid out on a worn oak table like shards of a broken dream. The air smells of parchment and candle wax, but beneath it lingers something sharper, fear. The council watches him with eyes that range from skepticism to outright hostility. A dwarven historian scoffs into his beard, muttering about fever dreams and too much time underground. A human scribe leans forward, quill poised, her knuckles white around the shaft. But it's the eldest among them, an elf with silver hair and eyes like frost over a deep lake, who chills Eldrin to the core. The moment the elder's gaze falls upon the crystal fragments, his breath catches. A tremor runs through his hands, so slight most wouldn't notice. Eldrin does. "You have seen what should not be seen," the elf murmurs, his voice like wind through dead leaves. The room seems to darken at the words, the candle flames shrinking as if afraid to illuminate what comes next, and spoken of what should not be spoken. A ripple passes through the gathered scholars, some shifting in their seats, others gripping the edges of their robes. The dwarf's scoff dies in his throat. The scribe's quill snaps in her grip. Eldrin's throat is dry, but he forces the words out anyway. "I didn't just see them, they spoke to me, in my mind. In my bones." He rolls up his sleeve, revealing the emerald veins beneath his skin. The elf recoils as if struck. The scribe gasps, and then chaos. Arguments erupt, voices overlapping in a cacophony of denial and dread. The nameless are myth. The deep places are best left undisturbed. He's brought their attention upon us. Only the elf remains silent, his gaze locked on Eldrin's corrupted flesh. When he finally speaks, his voice cuts through the noise like a blade. The crystal was not a relic, it was a lock. The room falls deathly still, and you, mortal fool, have broken it. A log collapses in the hearth, sending up a shower of sparks. Outside, the wind rises, howling through the eaves like a thing in pain. Eldrin's pulse hammers in his ears, but beneath the fear, something else stirs understanding. The creatures in the dark weren't just hiding, they were imprisoned, and now, thanks to him, the door is ajar. The elf rises, his robes whispering against the stone floor. "Leave us," he commands the others. When the last scholar has fled, he turns to Eldrin, his expression unreadable. "You will tell me everything, and then you will forget you ever spoke of it." His fingers brush the hilt of a dagger at his belt, not in threat, but in grim resolve. For all our sakes, Eldrin should be afraid. He should bow his head, swear silence, let the world go on pretending the dark is empty. But the veins in his arm pulse, and the whispers in his skull coil tighter. He meets the elf's gaze and smiles. It's not a pleasant smile. "Too late," he says softly. They're already listening. Somewhere, far beneath the earth, something laughs. Eldrin's boots crush brittle grass as he climbs the hillside, the weight of the council's silence still pressing against his ribs. The stars above are too bright, too sharp, as if they're watching. He arranges dry twigs with methodical precision, his fingers moving by habit rather than thought. The fire sparks to life with a crackle, its glow painting his face in flickering gold, but the warmth doesn't reach the cold knot in his chest. The whispers have vanished, yes, but the absence is worse. It's the quiet of a predator holding its breath. He stares into the flames, half expecting them to twist into shapes he recognizes. The altar's gaping maw, the faceless figure's outstretched hand, the lake's grasping fingers. Instead, they dance harmlessly, taunting him with their normalcy. His journal lies open in the dirt, its pages blank where answers should be. The emerald veins beneath his skin throb faintly, a reminder that some doors, once opened, leave splinters behind. A gust of wind snakes through the grass, carrying a scent that stops his breath. Damp stone, yes, but beneath it, something muskier, the same odor that clung to the walls of Moria's deepest chambers. His head snaps up, scanning the darkness beyond the firelight. Nothing moves, no shadows peel away from the trees, no voices slither into his skull, just the wind. Just the night, yet his hand trembles as he reaches for the journal, the quill slipping in his sweat-damp grip. The first stroke of ink blooms across the page like a wound. They are not gone, he writes. They are waiting. The fire pops, sending a spiral of embers skyward. For a heartbeat, they hang there, suspended, a constellation of dying stars. Then the wind shifts again, and the scent returns, thicker this time. Not just stone, not just musk. Iron. Eldrin's blood goes still. He knows that smell. It's the same metallic tang that filled the air when the crystal shattered, when the altar split open, when the faceless thing smiled with his own lips. His fingers tighten around the quill, the nib snapping under the pressure. Ink pools black as the spaces between stars. Somewhere, far below the roots of the world, something stirs. Not in hunger, not in fury, in recognition. The journal page flutters, though the air is dead calm. The words he just wrote shimmer, the ink lifting from the paper like smoke, twisting into shapes that make his vision blur. Not letters anymore, not language, a face, his face, smiling. The fire goes out with a hiss. Darkness swallows the hillside whole, and in that darkness, Eldrin realizes the terrible truth. He didn't escape Moria with a curse. He escaped with an invitation. That night, Eldrin dreams of Moria not as a tomb, but as a living thing, its stone arteries pulsing, its cavernous lungs drawing in stale air with the rhythm of a sleeping giant. The shadows here don't lurk, they dance, swirling around his ankles like curious cats. The whispers aren't hisses but murmurs, voices frayed by centuries of silence, their words slipping through his grasp like smoke. And the creatures, oh, the creatures, in the dreamlight, they're not the twisted horrors he remembers. Their limbs, once jagged, now flow like water. Their hollow faces soften into something almost sorrowful. They reach for him, not to claw or claim, but to brush his fingertips with their own, their touch cool as river stone. One steps forward, taller than the rest, its form shimmering between solid and shadow. Where a mouth should be, there's only a ripple, like the surface of a pond disturbed by speech. You see us now, it sighs, not with malice, but relief. Not as invaders, as inheritors. The words don't come from its throat. They bloom in Eldrin's mind like ink in water, staining his thoughts with their truth. Around them, the walls of Moria melt away, revealing a sky choked with unfamiliar stars, a city of spiraling obsidian towers rising from the depths. This isn't a memory. It's a memory of a memory, a world that existed before the dwarves carved their first rune, before the elves sang their first song. Eldrin wakes with a gasp, his chest heaving, his pillow damp with tears he doesn't remember shedding. Dawn filters through the window, painting the room in pale gold, but the dream clings to him like cobwebs. His journal lies open beside the bed, its pages no longer blank. A flowing script covers them, elegant and alien, the letters looping like vines. He doesn't recognize the language, yet his fingers trace the curves as if they're old friends. The ink is still damp. A knock at the door shatters the stillness. The elf from the council stands there, his silver hair haloed by the morning light, his eyes sharp as flint. He takes one look at the journal, at the script, and his face goes ashen. "You've been marked," he breathes, gripping Eldrin's wrist, his thumb pressing against the emerald veins. "They're speaking through you now." Outside, the wind rises, carrying the scent of rain and something else, something that tastes like the space between heartbeats. The elf's grip tightens. The script isn't a warning, he says, his voice fraying at the edges. "It's an invitation, and you've already said yes." Eldrin looks down at the page. The ink shimmers, then rearranges itself before his eyes, the letters twisting into a single word. "Come." Eldrin's footsteps wear grooves across the map of Middle-earth, from the mist-cloaked ruins of a region to the forgotten libraries of Rune. Everywhere he goes, he leaves questions in his wake, careful, coded inquiries whispered to innkeepers, scholars, and wanderers. Most dismiss his words as madness. But a handful, meet his gaze with a flicker of recognition, their voices dropping to hushed confessions. A she-elf in Lothlorien, her fingers tracing the same emerald veins on her own wrist. A dwarven miner who fled Kaz at Doom decades before the Balrog's awakening, babbling of things that move through solid rock. A ranger from the north, his campfire tales speaking of caves where shadows peeled away from the walls to follow travelers home. Their stories are shards of the same shattered mirror, each reflecting a truth too vast for any one mind to hold. By firelight in crumbling towers and beneath the boughs of ancient forests, Eldrin collects these fragments like a man stitching a tapestry from smoke. The patterns emerge slowly, mentions of a time before the First Age, when the mountains were younger and the dark was not yet bound. Not evil, not in the way Morgoth was evil. Older, stranger, a hunger that predated light itself. The elves have no name for it. The dwarves bury their knowledge deeper than their deepest delvings, but the hints persist. Carvings in ruins no mason claims, verses in songs no bard remembers learning, all whispering of beings who were not made, but simply were. His chronicle grows thick with ink and dread, pages heavy with warnings the world has forgotten. He writes of the faceless things that swim through stone like fish through water, of the whispers that coil around dreams and never let go, of the altars where the air itself remembers sacrifice. Each word is an act of defiance, a refusal to let the dark go unchallenged, but as he pens the final line, a plea wrapped in prophecy, the candle gutters. Not from wind, from breath. The shadows in the corner of the room deepen, not with the absence of light, but with something pressing through. No claws, no eyes, just a presence, vast and patient. humming with the same resonance as the emerald veins beneath his skin. It doesn't speak. It doesn't need to. The message thrums in Eldrin's bones, clear as a struck bell. You have done what we could not. You have remembered. The book lies open between them, its pages suddenly fragile as moth wings. A choice hangs in the air, heavier than any blade. To scream would be futile, to run impossible. So Eldrin does the only thing left. He meets the dark without blinking and listens. Years pass, and Eldrin's name becomes little more than a tremor in the voices of those who dare speak it. Travelers huddle around campfires in the shadow of the misty mountains, passing his journal from hand to hand like a cursed relic. The pages grow brittle with time, the ink fading, but the words remain sharp as the day they were written. Scholars pore over them in hushed libraries, debating whether they're prophecy or madness. The dwarves, tight-lipped as ever, carve no songs of him. The elves whisper that he walked into the night willingly, drawn by something older than fear. The journal's final page is the most debated. They are calling me home. Simple, terrifying, is it surrender, a confession, or something worse, a revelation? No one agrees, but all who read it feel the same unease, a prickle at the base of the skull, as if the words themselves are listening. The lantern he left behind becomes a thing of superstition. Some say it's a ward, meant to keep the dark at bay. Others insist it's a beacon, waiting for the right hand to light it. But no flame has ever touched its wick since the night he disappeared. Strange things happen to those who linger too long on his tail. Shepherds swear they've seen a figure standing at Moria's sealed gates, his outline blurred by twilight, his face turned toward the depth. Children playing in the valleys below claim to hear laughter in the wind, soft, mocking, and terribly familiar. And once, a merchant caravan reported finding footprints in the snow leading toward the mountain, deep and purposeful, with no trace of return. The skeptical dismiss it all as fancy. The fearful make signs against evil and hurry past the mountain paths. But the wise, the few who have felt the weight of the nameless things in their dreams, they listen. They notice how the ravens no longer nest in Moria's cliffs, how the wolves avoid its shadow, how the very stones seem to hold their breath when the moon is high. And sometimes, when the wind dies and the world goes still, those who listen closest hear it, a whisper, not from the east, but from below, a voice that isn't a voice, humming a tune older than sorrow. It doesn't speak words, it doesn't need to. The message is in the marrow, in the blood, in the silent spaces between heartbeats. He is not lost, he is remembered. And the mountain keeps its secrets well.